And good morning, Cuse Nation, and welcome to the Upstate Orange podcast on FingerLakes1.tv and YouTube, coming at you live from inside the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls on Sunday, November 22nd, 2015. For the next 40 minutes or so, we'll be talking about Syracuse's opener in the Battle for Atlantis, their win over Elon, and the week ahead in the tournament down in the Bahamas. And stay tuned also for some Connor's Corner trivia. The Upstate Orange podcast is brought to you by Generations Bank with locations in Auburn, Farmington, Geneva, Phelps, Seneca Falls, Union Springs, and Waterloo. Be sure to check out their mobile banking app or visit them online at mygenbank.com. Well, Brad, good morning on a Sunday morning. How you doing?
Good morning, Jim. Happy Sunday morning indeed.
We've got Brad live on the phone via Cincinnati, Ohio. Just he and I again this week as we recap the game last night against Elon, which, these first three games have all been a little concerning, but also encouraging at the same time,
Yeah, we've seen some good things. We've seen some things that they can definitely improve on. It's good to get some of these games out of the way early that we can see the team get their legs under them and prepare for what is to come ahead, which gets a lot tougher very quickly.
Yeah, we've got a game against Charlotte on Wednesday night, and that's a game that this Elon team beat that Charlotte team. And then it gets a little more serious with UConn or Michigan coming up on Thanksgiving, the day after. So, you did get a chance to watch that Elon game, right, Brad?
I watched it. It was we had some nuggets of insight, and we'll talk more about it. There was definitely some things that I liked, some things that we need to see improve. Elon wasn't expected to be a very good team this year. I think they said repeatedly they were predicted at the bottom of the Colonial Conference, so it wasn't expected to be much of a test, and unfortunately it was a test for way too long, but some things to build on.
Yep, and 3-0. Let's not forget that. 3-0 to start the year. Not a lot of other teams aren't so fortunate, like North Carolina, who went down yesterday to, Northern Iowa, I think, beat them.
Northern Iowa, yeah.
So, in this day of college basketball, wins are wins, and in the end, those three wins were all, they didn't go down to the wire. They were a little closer than we wanted, perhaps, but in the second half, they did pull away, and that brings us to our big five questions of the week. And, Brad, I'm going to ask you right off the bat, let's start on a positive note today, biggest strengths of this year's iteration of the Orange, biggest strength. Or strengths.
Yeah, I think the strength of this team is the same as with previous iterations of this team. It's the 2-3 zone. And I think we've seen the effect that the shorter shot clock is having on teams trying to probe that zone a little bit. And they struggle. And, Elon especially, we saw them their whole recipe was just to shoot three-pointers over it. I think they had some success early on. And whether, the couple of late buzzer beating shot clock makes that they had, which are frustrating, but I think teams are going to have to resort to that a lot because it's just harder to penetrate a good zone with 5 fewer seconds. And I think they've got enough length, and that's like we talked about their style and what they recruit to, and the guys they have on the floor are guys that can extend out on wings and get out on shooters, and I think they've done a decent job of holding down the inside. They have to probably improve a little bit, and that's when we see Boeheim jump off the bench and go after his team is when there's a little bit too much movement inside. I think that can be shored up a little bit, but I think this is still going to be their team's calling card is the 2-3 and generating offense off of defense, I think.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on the zone, but I'm going to go with another strength that is kind of pleasantly surprising given the way that our offense has been the last couple of years, is we have shooters this year. We'll be hot and cold, and we haven't broken 80 yet in these three games. As a matter of fact, last night's the opening game was 57 against points put up against Lehigh, put up 79 against Bonaventure, nice win against an A10 team. And that's another game that they played since we talked last. and then 66 against Elon. So, but they're shooting good not only from the 3-point line, but from the free throw line. They've been shooting pretty good. So that's encouraging, and I'd like to think that shooting's a strength of this team, which is something we really couldn't say for a while. So let's shift from the strengths now to the weaknesses. Biggest weaknesses of this year's team, and is it something that we can improve on? I'm going to kick it off on the weakness side, straight out saying rebounding. And we'll talk a little bit later about Tyler Roberson. He had a huge night rebounding last night with 16 rebounds, but as a whole, it's suspect. And in another weakness across the board seems to be foul trouble from the center position. And Michael Benajay had 3 fouls with 8 minutes to go in the first half. So those are 2 concerns I have going forward. What do you think about weaknesses so far of this year's team, Brad?
Yeah, I'll agree with you on the foul trouble. That wasn't the one I had in mind, but that's a concern. These teams are notoriously not very deep, Syracuse teams, and when you have your point guard sitting on the bench for the majority of the first half, that's you can't do that in ACC play. So you gotta sharpen that up. I mean, we saw in the Bonaventure game, Tyler Roberson fouled out. A couple other guys were 3 or 4 fouls, and Malachi Richardson had 4 fouls yesterday. Delon Coleman's perpetually in foul trouble. Boko fouled out in the first game in about 12, 13, 14 minutes. So they've got to be able to defend more fundamentally, and they're calling things a little bit tighter this year, and that's a good thing. But our guys have to be able to make that adjustment. That's become an Achilles heel if they let it continue. But I would say, personally, I think the biggest weakness of this team, and something that I'm not sure will get much better throughout the year, is anything offensively from the interior post game. I think what we've seen the last several games is down the stretch they've gone with Tyler Lydon at the 5, and he's not a back to the basket guy. He can extend, and that's great. He gives you a lot of options, but he's not a guy that's going to post up. Coleman is that guy, but he's just not getting minutes. I don't know in these types of games why Coach Boeheim wouldn't throw him out on the floor more, unless it's just purely a conditioning issue. But he looks like he's in great shape, so I don't know why that's a problem. Maybe just trying to ease his knee into game shape. But I mean, you need to give that guy minutes. You need to give him reps to get him out there, have a back to the basket presence. He's got the skill set. He always had it. He hasn't lost it. It's just physically can he do what he used to be able to do. But they need him to be a bigger presence inside, to be able to draw some defense inside, so they can get kickouts to 3-point shooters or guys slashing the lane, that sort of thing that we've seen right now. But defense are going to key on that, especially in ACC play, and so they need somebody that can draw some defense inside.
Well, I suppose that leads right to our next question of the week, and that's what's going on with this center position. We thought we'd see a lot more Coleman. Aboko's got some time, but really it's been Tyler Lydon, the freshman forward, who's been manning the center of the zone. Last night, he played 35 minutes, I think. Yeah, Lydon played 35 minutes to Aboko's 5 and Coleman's 10. And that didn't seem like you could only get 15 minutes out of those 2 guys with the roster we have. But, Bam will do anything that he thinks will help him win a game. And obviously he thinks Lydon is his best option inside. I mean, I would have even thought Roberson would move to center. Lydon would play power forward, but I guess he likes Lydon's positioning, in the center of that zone, and he does give us a little more offensive threat than the other 2 guys, which is kind of scary. I'm looking here. Aboko 5 minutes, Coleman 10 minutes, and another thing that's kind of encouraging about Tyler Lydon is how many fouls did he have in those 35 minutes in the center of the zone? He only had 3 fouls playing 35 minutes in the center of the zone. So, it tends to make me believe that Lydon is smart in the middle of that zone, and even though he might not be as an imposing of a presence in there, he might be our best option, similar to the way Craig Forth was when he manned the center of the zone.
Yeah, the difference between Craig Forth had about 4 inches on Tyler Lydon. I mean, that's the challenge, right? I mean, Lydon's only about 6'8". He's going to have a difficult time going up against the big, beefier kind of front lines that we're going to see in the in ACC play. You need Dajuan Coleman to be that guy. Like I said, I don't know why he's not getting the minutes. Coach Boeheim wants to win the games now and doesn't want to take any chances, I guess. But that's been maybe some of the frustration we've had with him over the years, is not developing guys when you get the chance early in the season, and then when it comes time to needing them down the stretch, they're not really where you want them to be. Usually that happens with the younger guys. In this case, Dajuan Coleman is, in some sense, he actually is a younger guy. He just doesn't have the same type of experience at the Division I level, and he's going to struggle a little bit as he gets back into things. But, man, you got to give him more than 10 minutes, I think. He wasn't in foul trouble. He just wasn't very effective. I mean, Coleman was out there for 10 minutes. He got 1 rebound. I mean, I think that's kind of telling. And
is he giving up on him?
Why he didn't play, but
is Boeheim giving up on him a little bit?
I think this team will really struggle if they have to have Tyler Lydon playing the 5 for 30-plus minutes a night once you get into conference play.
Yeah, and in a way, it's very disappointing because this was supposed to be the year we finally got Dajuan Coleman. Everything that we were promised when he came over from JD, and 5 years later, it's never materialized due to injuries. 10 minutes against Elon, the game before that, 14 against St. Bonaventure, and only 13 against Lehigh. Maybe he's easing him in due to the injury, but he's been practicing and he's trimmed down, and necessarily shouldn't be conditioning issue to play that few minutes, but certainly concerning. And it'll be interesting to see the lineup when we play UConn or Michigan. Although, from the looks of things, UConn's 3-0, they're looking good. Michigan dropped a game who did they lose to? They lost one.
2 minutes ago, they lost to
Xavier, correct. So, who's to say that St. Bonaventure, or Elon or Lehigh isn't as tough a test at this point as one of those two teams, but it'll be interesting to see Boeheim's approach to that. But before we talk about the games coming up, let's talk about Tyler Roberson, who had just a fantastic game last night. Really silent and not showing too much emotion out there, but he's able to pull down 16 rebounds, 7 of them offensive in 37 minutes last night, 9-15 from the field, 2 of 2 from the line for 20 points. That's 20.16 rebounds. I'd take that every night from Tyler Roberson, but can he do it? Can he be consistent, Brad? Can he consistently deliver? Because he seems like the only guy who's really delivering on the glass for us right now.
Yeah, that's actually what I wrote down in front of me, was the consistency of what Tyler Roberson brings. He's when he brings peak energy, which we saw last night, he's as good as any rebounder that we've seen of his size. He can attack the glass. He understands how the ball's coming off, so he gets himself in a good position. He goes up strong with it, again, for a guy his size. But then again, we saw him against Lehigh do virtually nothing, and 5 rebounds in 20-plus minutes, no points. Somehow I think he was told in no uncertain terms before last night, you get the ball and you're going to attack the basket, period. He said sometimes we see him settle too much for a mid-range jumper. Right. And he's not been very effective with that shot historically. So I think he's better off being a slasher going at the rim. I think he understands how to get himself clean looks to get to the basket. He can penetrate, and we saw that a couple times last night. Mm-hmm. And obviously he can get putbacks. So I think he can be that guy. He's just got to take that attitude, I think, with him. And we haven't seen that from game to game. If we can see the guy that we saw last night on a consistent basis, then fantastic. I'm concerned too often he lapses into the guy we saw against Lehigh and, to a lesser degree against Bonaventure, where he did have double-figure rebounds, but he only
6 points.
6 points, and I think he can do more. And we saw that yesterday, and I think he can. It's attitude, and it's the motivation of being the man inside. And I think they've recognized we don't have a whole lot of offense on this team inside. You've got to be that guy, so make that happen. And he took it to heart. It looked like last night. Hopefully that continues.
Yep, I agree with you there. I think Roberson, in many ways, is the key. He needs to be that third-team ACC type quality player for this team to be successful. He needs to average 10, 12 points a game, and he needs to average 8, 10 rebounds a game. He's got to be near that double-double mark every night, because I don't see Iboko getting rebounds, and I don't see Coleman doing what we expected him to do. Unfortunately, we have bigger guards, which might help a little bit on the boards, but really we were out rebounded by St. Bonaventure, and we got to clean the glass. That's going to be an issue going forward if Roberson isn't able to deliver double-digit rebounds on a nightly basis. So, and we're going to find out a lot about a lot of these questions right away, because we have a gauntlet of a schedule coming up that is as stout as any time this season. Wednesday night they have Charlotte in the Bahamas, and then they're gonna, if they beat Charlotte or if they lose, they'll face either UConn or Michigan. And then it looks like on the other side of the bracket it would be Gonzaga or Texas next. And then you think that's not enough. They come home from the Bahamas, and then a week from Wednesday on December 2nd, they have Wisconsin in the Dome, a Wisconsin team that lost to Georgetown. But don't get too excited about that yet, because after that we have Georgetown. So those are, we got Charlotte and then 4 games coming up against big-time schools in a row. And you don't even generally get a stretch like that in conference play. So right off the bat, we're going to see what Boeheim does different, I think, with his lineups, and we're going to see how Benijay responds as a leader against some more elite competition, and we're going to see how the freshmen Leiden and Richardson perform on a bigger stage. So is this team ready to take this on, Brad?
It's hard to tell right now. If they play like they did in the first 30 minutes against Elon and Bonaventure and Lehigh too. I mean, in all 3 of those games, they were not really the dominant team until maybe the last 10 minutes of the game when they were able to pull away. Feels like they're not coming ready for some reason, and yeah, that'll bite you against a team like UConn. Certainly Gonzaga if you get into it, and definitely Wisconsin and Georgetown. I think Michigan, I'm not sure I'm too impressed by. I think if they get Michigan, I like Syracuse's chances in that game. Michigan's got Karis LeVert back. I think he's really the extent of what they've got back from what the successful teams they've had in previous years. UConn's a fun game. It's a good rivalry game, but they haven't really beaten anybody. It's sort of the same resume that Syracuse has at this point in the season. They've beaten a bunch of New England teams. I think they beat Furman. None of those are resume builders by any means. So that's hard to tell at this point what you're going to get. The game against, if they get to Gonzaga, that's going to be tough. I think they have a very, very difficult time with Gonzaga if they get them today, and based on some of the limitations we've seen from this team. But if they can get two more games under their belt against decent competition and go up into that game, if they're fortunate enough to make the finals, we'll see. It's a learning experience for this group. It's a pretty young team still. So, even though you got 2 seniors, Coleman is young in a lot of ways, and the offense is coming from Malachi Richardson, who's a freshman, and if we can get Roberson to continue to play like he did, I think he'll continue to develop over the next 2 weeks. We'll see it right in front of our eyes. But there's a lot to ask here. Charlotte, you see Mark Price is their coach. He's a guy that Syracuse fans of vintage probably know pretty well from a tournament back in '83. I think it was.
Took the Pearl out of the NCAA tournament in his sophomore year.
Yeah. So Syracuse fans don't think very well of Mark Price even to this day.
Well, it is fun. Thanksgiving week's going to include a lot of big-time college basketball games, which will be great. And then when we come back and hit December, we're going to hit it hard with the Big Ten ACC Challenge. Wisconsin coming to the Dome, a bit of an oddity there. And then from there, we're going to have our old friends Georgetown down in Washington, D.C. So a lot to get excited about. And, if we can win, keep winning, and we'll be ranked before long. It's a good start, 3-0. I'm perfectly happy with the way this team has started. So we're going a little shorter tonight. We're not going full hour tonight. We're going to shoot for about 40 minutes, so we're already about halfway there. I'm going to step aside for 60 seconds, hear from our sponsors, and then when we come back, it's time for Connor's Corner Trivia.
Guidance and partnership through every step of the journey. Welcome to Generations Bank.
Good luck to all of our student athletes this high school sports season.
Big enough to have degree programs that will take me where I want to go. And small enough that I don't have to travel alone.
Big enough that I can take classes from anywhere. And small enough to get the support I need to succeed.
Big enough that there's always something going on. And small enough that I'm never just a face in the crowd. Finger Lakes Community College.
And welcome back inside the FingerLakes1.com studios downtown Seneca Falls. This is the Upstate Orange podcast. It's basketball season, and we got some good basketball coming up. But right now, it's time for our favorite segment of the week. Last week, Brad had a great trivia question for us, which we hashed through for about 10-15 minutes. Today, a little something shorter. Brad, what do you have for us this week on Connor's Corner Trivia?
Yeah, I was really had my heart set on a trivia question for you that I needed to do some research on, and then I went out to find the Syracuse Media Guide where I knew I would find the answers to it. And the Media Guide's not posted on the website. It wasn't accessible. So if anybody that's listening or watching that has any influence on the Syracuse Media Guide, get it back up there. That's the best source of trivia. If you guys want good trivia, I need that Media Guide up there quickly.
Right now, everybody knows where to cheat.
Yeah, if you want to research these trivia questions, go to the Media Guide. It's all out there. But I got some other resources, so I went to a couple other resources and got some stuff. So I have kind of a hodgepodge for you tonight or this morning, and some good things, some things that will get us whet the appetite a little bit as we get into the season. So first question I got for you, Jim: how many winning seasons consecutively is Syracuse working off of right now?
Well, all of Boeheim's, and then before that, into all the 70s had to be winning seasons. I think that the first winning season, the last time they did not have a winning season was the year before Boeheim came on campus with Dave Bing. So what would that be, 1960? 1960, 61?
Boeheim got to campus in 62.
So I'm going to say 61.
He's the same age as my father.
I'm going to say 1960-61 season.
Well, they did have a losing record in that season, but that's incorrect.
They've had one since.
So the last time Syracuse did not have a winning season was in the 1969-1970 season, 12 and 12. And Roy Danforth's second year at the helm of Syracuse.
They didn't have a losing season,
in
though.
1970-71, they've had a winning record each and every year, which Syracuse fans will come to appreciate. It's 44 straight winning seasons for this program.
Oh, wow. This could be a banner year.
That's right. That's why I wanted to call that out. 44 consecutive winning seasons. If they persist this year, it'll be 45, but let's enjoy the 44 this year while we have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting to think about something like that. I mean, that's amazing. 44 years without a losing record. You know, how many other schools in the country can say that? How many schools in the country have a streak that long?
No,
Any?
none.
None.
Syracuse is the longest in all of Division One in terms of active streaks.
Was that the next question? Because that's very impressive. You know, when you think of
Yeah, it was. You answered it for me.
Duke, you know, Kentucky, North Carolina, all these blue blood programs.
Kansas.
Kansas, that's right. Nobody has gone as long as the Cuse without a losing record. And people wanted to replace Boeheim with Tom Penders in like the early 80s. Well, that's a great trivia question to bring up because I don't think a lot of Cuse fans even realize that. They were just so used to winning every year.
Yeah, that's something to celebrate. And even when, quote unquote down years, like we've had, they didn't make the tournament last year, obviously, because they were banned. But, last year was a pretty unsuccessful year by all accounts, and it was 18-13. They were still, well above the 500 mark, which for most programs, their poor years are, sub 500, and this team doesn't. And you can make the argument, well, they don't play anybody in the preseason, and that's true. But
so is that right?
They do schedule strong games. They always play in a preseason tournament like Atlantis or the preseason at IT and tournaments like that. So you're playing good competition, and they're now playing a Big East, old Big East teams, and they're playing.
St. Bonaventure's an A-10 team. St. Bonaventure's an A-10 team. It's not like we're, bringing in the Sisters of St. Mary, New Jersey Aquinas. This is a major college conference member in St. Bonaventure, and yeah, they're not the same caliber as a top flight Big Ten or ACC, but when you schedule these things, you never know exactly how they're going to be. And if you're scheduling anybody from a mid-major conference or higher, you're going to have to play good to beat them. So,
right.
I got a question for you, Brad. Trivia question: how many consecutive winning seasons does the Syracuse football team have?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 0.
Yeah, I mean, I watched that NC State game yesterday, and it was their 8th straight loss, I believe. And it's just like, they started out 3-0, and it's just, it's really disappointing. But this is not about football.
It makes you appreciate the basketball program that much more.
Sure.
The turmoil and the ups and downs that we've had to endure on the football side of things, the consistency with which their basketball program has succeeded is far and away beyond what most programs can expect. And I think, unfortunately, most programs see what we see on the football side, which is some years they're good and you make a bowl game and you're decent, and other years you're crappy and you rebuild for the following year. And unfortunately, on the basketball side, we don't see that. In football, you sort of see what the other half has to deal with.
Absolutely. So is that the trivia for the week, or we have another auxiliary add-on?
I got one or two more for you. Who leads this team? Who has the most offensive rebounds in one game in the history of this team, in this program?
The most offensive rebounds in one game.
One game.
I think
I got to thinking about it as I'm watching Tyler Roberson, work the glass yesterday, and I know he's been very strong, even on the offensive glass. But who has the most in one single game?
Yeah, I honestly feel like I should know this one. I feel like I do know this one, but I'm kind of drawing a little bit of a blank. I think it. I think it was a game early in the season where a lesser-known player kind of dominated, and it was an aberration. They didn't do it again. Part of me's thinking maybe Arinze Onuaku. Part of me's thinking Fab Melo. I'm for the sake of time, Brad, I'm going to have to just ask for the answer on this one because I'll say Fab Melo, but I don't think that's right.
Fab Melo is incorrect. The record, you got to go back to 1990, December of 1990. The opponent was Wagner. And the guy that set the record, Billy Owens.
Oh, wow. How many?
Billy Owens had 12 offensive rebounds in one game against Wagner in 1990. Now, it's a pretty elite list of guys that have had at least 10 offensive rebounds in one game. And you go down the list, Tyler Roberson had 11 in a game last year against Louisiana Tech. Others with 11, Hakeem Warwick, Billy Owens had 11 in a game against Villanova. LeRon Ellis had 11. in the game also against Villanova that same season in a separate game against Villanova. They were a good rebounding team.
Wow, I
apparently.
guess not.
Derek Coleman had an 11 rebound game.
You can see that.
1 month after another, he had 2 11 offensive rebound games in 1990. Terrence Roberts actually did at one time. A couple guys had 10. Paul Harris, Dave Johnson, Ronnie Cycli, Derek Coleman again. So pretty good rebounding list, really. And Tyler Roberson's on that list, and he can continue to be on that list if he really works what we were seeing last night against Elon.
All right, we got about 5 minutes left in the show here, Brad. You got another quick one for me?
Yeah, one quick one. Who's the career leader in dunks on this team?
Dunks. I didn't know they track
the current roster. Yeah.
Oh, on the current roster.
Find that information. The internet's a great place.
The current roster. Who has most dunks on this current roster? Geez, I think it would have to be Benajay, wouldn't it?
It would not have to be Benajay. It would have to be Tyler Roberson.
That's crazy.
Yeah, isn't it? So this goes back. I have it at the end of last year, so I don't have it through this year. But I think this year probably continues to hold true. Tyler Roberson going in this year had 23 dunks in the course of his career, and Michael Benjay had 14. Dajuan Coleman had 10. Caleb Joseph 6, and that's Trevor Cooney 15.
Yeah, I was almost going to say Cooney.
Matter of fact.
I was almost going to say Cooney, but
skipped Cooney on the list. Yeah, so Roberson's first at 23, Cooney 15, Benajay 14,
well,
and then Coleman 10, Joseph 6. That's the active list going into the season.
Yeah, not a lot of dunks, not any prolific dunkers on this team, really, but...
I'll give you a little basis for comparison. Rakeem Christmas, after closing his career, he had 133 dunks.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to ask me career, I was going to say maybe Ronnie Cycli, but...
I don't have a career list in front of me.
Yeah, they didn't track them. We'll go back and watch every game. So let's great trivia again this week, Brad. But we got to kick it over. We got about 4 minutes left. 2 for the road. And the first topic I just wanted to discuss is I've been watching this Syracuse team, and what I see is Trevor Cooney doing the same stuff he's always done. A little bit of things to get excited about, but then bobbling passes and going up for a reverse layup and throwing it off the bottom of the rim. It just seems in his 5th-year senior, I haven't seen him really separate himself from the stuff that has kind of stigmatized him his previous 4 years here on the Hill. Trevor Cooney, Brad, same old Cooney, or has he actually taken a step up here for his final season?
I don't think he's taken leaps and bounds up from where he was. The thing I like most about him, really, is his defense. I mean, he gets a lot of steals. He anticipates really well what the defense is trying to do and trying to throw skip passes, and he jumps those passes and creates some offense off of it. I think he's as strong in the zone as anybody. But on offense, man, he throws up a shot. I just assume it's not going in. Like, there was a time, when he gets hot, you're like, okay, just keep feeding him, and he'll knock him down. He's shooting 30% behind the arc, and it's early, it's 3 games, but
and it's not
all the guys that have made a 3-pointer this season, he has the lowest percentage of anybody. The only guy lower is Frank Howard, and he's only shot twice.
Yeah, Caleb Joseph's higher.
He a higher clip from 3-point range than Trevor Cooney. I mean, he's one of the worst 3-point shooters on his team statistically.
And so it almost gets to the point as, don't shoot it. Be that defensive player and don't force it. But even wide open threes, he's missing. When that guy, when Michael Benajay or Malachi Richardson squares up for an open three, that's going in 80% of the time, it seems like. Where Cooney, it's, all bets are off when that ball's in the air.
Right. It's crazy. He's supposed to have the reputation as a shooter, but man, I would rather have 3 or 4 guys on this team shoot. I'd rather have Tyler Lydon shoot threes than Trevor Cooney, honestly.
That's right. Who's looked good. I don't think he hit any yesterday, did he? No, he didn't even take one. Oh no, he did. He was 1 for 2 yesterday, and then he was 2 for 2 against St. Bonaventure, 0 for 3 against Lehigh. So I don't want to bash Cooney. I think he's a real asset to this team out in the court, especially like you say defensively. It's just like, man, this guy was supposed to be such an incredible shooter, and here we are 5 years later, and and worried he's going to go 0 for January or something like that. It's really going to cost the team. So let's kick it down finally to our last topic of the day. We need some official predictions for the Battle for Atlantis. Brad, what do you see happening?
I see Syracuse winning a close game, closer than it should be, against Charlotte, similar to what we've seen in the first 4 games. Then I see them going up against the UConn team, and as much as I hate to say it, I think they're not going to be up for that test, and they're going to lose to UConn. Then they're going to go into the consolation, and they're going to play a Texas team, and I think they're going to come out victorious against Texas. So I think they're going to go 2-1. If they can get to the finals, I don't think they're going to beat Gonzaga. I said it when we were doing our predictions last week that I thought they were going to lose 1 game in this tournament. To me, it's either going to be against UConn or Gonzaga. As much as I hate to see them lose to UConn, unfortunately, I think that's kind of where it's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think they'll go 2-1. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win the semifinal game and then lose to Gonzaga in the finals. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them win it all. And I also wouldn't be shocked to see them go 1-2. But as you're going to find with a Hall of Fame coach like Jim Boeheim, he's going to have us in positions to win these games. And we might see different lineups in each game. We might see a little more of Boko or Coleman one game than Leiden. We might see a little more Caleb Joseph one game than another game. But we've been talking about the zone this year being something that's going to be a little special, and we're going to find out right away. And so these other teams, as is the case with all Syracuse opponents, no team that comes to play Syracuse ever faces a zone like Syracuse's. So no matter what they've done leading into it, it can change like that. And if they're struggling from the outside and we're creating turnovers off the zone, then we got a good chance to beat anybody in the country, any year, any month. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Especially in a tournament format where you don't have a whole lot of time to prepare. So a second
That's
round,
right.
third round game, they're not spending half a week trying to prepare for that 2-3, and you can't replicate it anyway.
Well, it's going to be great. We got we got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday Syracuse games this week. So
I'll tell you what's fun about this event, Jim, is that they play it in a ballroom in a hotel.
I know.
At this resort in the Bahamas. It's not in a gym. They actually
there's chandeliers.
Have, business meetings and things in this ballroom, but they convert it into a basketball floor. I don't know how it is that shots don't hit the ceiling when they play in this room, but that's a fun part of this event to watch.
It is strange, but I can't remember last time I remember Syracuse playing on Thanksgiving Day. Usually the NFL football games on Thanksgiving are kind of boring, so we'll be watching the Cuse, which will be nice. Well, Brad, we've pretty much used up our allotted time for this Sunday morning edition. Next week, we'll be back on Sunday night, 10 o'clock, again, per normal. We'll recap all this Atlantis activity, and we'll preview the Wisconsin game, and we'll preview our trip to Georgetown. So it didn't take long, Brad, for us to get right into the heart of the season, and I'm excited about it. As I mentioned, I'm sick of watching the football team lose. So I'm ready to go.
Agreed. Can't wait for some high-powered competition and see what this team's made of.
Now, are you going to be in studio next week? Is that something that's happening?
Not on the evening show, no.
But if we did it in the morning, you could be in?
Possibly, yes.
Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe you're going to have to check your local listings, Upstate Orange fans, because we might move that to the morning. So we'll figure that out, and that'll be posted on the front page of fingerlakes1.com. That's where the live webcast schedule will be. But, yeah, thanks for getting up a little early on a Sunday, Brad, and talking some Syracuse hoops.
Absolutely. Fun to do it.
And you have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Yeah.
All right, so thanks everybody for joining us for the Upstate Orange podcast. We'll be back again next Sunday at either 9 or 10 a.m. or 9 or 10 p.m. We'll let you know with another edition. You can subscribe to our feed on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or via RSS. We're online at fingerlakes1.tv/upstateorange. So for the Professor Brad Connor, I'm Jim Sinacropi. Have a great week, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, and let's go Orange.